Nothing makes me sadder than leaving Chick-fil-A in New York for the last time. But I think they have one at the airport, so I think we'll be okay. Jamie Dodds, man of the plan. How's New York?
It is sick.
Yeah, it is sick.
The hustle's real.
The lift is incredible. So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You know, obviously on the media side of things too, I do want to touch on this because we're live now. This is the original.
Welcome to NYC.
This is the original gangster, Michael Meier. I'll give you all his links in the actual feed so you can go follow him. Was doing video before anybody else. You'll find a video of him on a crotch rocket if you go on YouTube selling the goods. I'll show you guys.
Selling higher with Michael Meier.
Yeah.
So that was series was called. We did four videos.
Yeah.
I'll sum it up what it was, but you can just go check it out. So back in 2008, I wanted to start jumping in on video, and back then it was really expensive to do video. So like these were like $10,000 like shows, and I would have a full crew. I'd have like a red camera. I didn't have any of this stuff. Wow. And so the concept was I want to educate people on New York City real estate. We have crazy architecture here. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot of like cerebral stimulation there, right? But most people, that's like not enough if they're on social media and you want to talk about the history of like a building. People just yawn a little bit, right? But when you put really beautiful people on and they're kind of sexy, people will start watching. So what I did was, I was already at the time, I was going into apartments and I was doing lifestyle photo shoots.
Okay.
So we would like take a bunch of models and we would show the lifestyle of an apartment. We would take pictures, showing people on the couch, things like that. So we continued to do that, but then I hired a videographer, and I had the videographer follow me around the city. I had a Ducati at the time, and I would go around the city, and he would jump behind me on the camera or be on a car in a taxi going next to me. It was crazy, and would film me going around the city. So you'd see my gorgeous bike, and you'd watch because of that, and then I would talk to you about the buildings that we were driving around, and then I'd be like, hey, listen, I got a photo shoot going on. Why don't we go behind the scenes and check out what's going on at the photo shoot?
Yeah.
And then we would go to the photo shoot that was really going on, and we would film, what was going on.
Like a vlog.
Like a vlog.
Yeah.
But it was like a series, so each of these videos, we wanted the eyeballs, right? So the type of a lifestyle that we had was like a girl on the counter being painted with chocolate. Or just like a crazy party going on. And we played with all the, at that time, sexual innuendos, and that was just, it brought us a crazy following.
New York was kind of in that mindset back then too.
Yeah.
Right? Like you see shifts in culture that happen over the years too, and
like you don't even have these videos on my website because they're not even on brand anymore with me.
And it's
but like back then,
right?
like now it's like, oh, I was a kid. Yeah, that was what I did as a kid.
And it's funny, because you're adapting to a marketplace and based on needs of your clients at the time. Like back then when nobody was doing it, you're trying to shock people and get people's attention when there's so much media out there. And that everybody's putting out the same type of videos. It's like, okay, well, how am I going to do this different, right?
Yeah.
Which is like the world that we live in now, with everybody's doing podcasting and everybody's doing this and that. And you were just talking about the podcast you're going to launch, and I know it's going to be different.
And it's been a while to think about it because there's no point to just go do a podcast like everyone else is doing. Like, if I'm not going to listen to it, then why am I going to spend my time on it?
Yeah.
And why am I going to want other people to do it? So
I had that conversation with Ryan because I actually came in with a mindset that, let's shoot this as a podcast, and I'm like, my wife is hilarious because she owns a business with me, right?
Yeah.
She's super smart, MBA educated, like very, very, very smart girl. And she's like, you realize if you just do it like everybody else, it's just going to get lost in the fold, right? I'm like, yeah, you're right. And she's like, so don't make it scripted. Don't go off a list of questions. She's like, just have an organic conversation. She's like, develop a friendship, and who knows where it's going to go from there. And that's what we ended up doing, right? And I think when you messaged me online, just supporting what we were doing in New York and being like, hey, you're in New York. I'm like, Google your office, here's the address, here's a hotel. I'm like, what are you doing tomorrow? It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just, it's the connection of people, right? Like if I can bring my audience to you, and then they can learn from what you're doing, from whatever.
I'll be sure to share that. So anyone that's watching on my page, follow back. How do they? Well, they'll see you.
No, whatever.
It's being shared.
Yeah. I'll give you this footage too, and you do whatever you want with it. So, like, in a nutshell, I'm sure you want to know this too. like we were talking about this, New York's such a big city.
Yeah.
Right? Like, in our market, I call it focused diversification. 500,000 people in our central market. We have all these tertiary markets around our territory, but it's almost like the boroughs, right? Like, you compare our southwestern Ontario, I can sell real estate in Great Bend, St. Thomas, Alderton, Woodstock, Sarnia. It's like you going to Queens, Brooklyn, blah, blah, blah. Like, at what point do you draw the line in New York and say, I'm going to niche down to this product. I'm going to do this. Like, what is your niche?
Yeah.
And how did you kind of come to that understanding?
It's a good question. And I think if I'm going to be honest, and we're live, so I guess I'm stuck. I got to be honest. I can't edit this. It's out there. It's an ongoing struggle, and I haven't solved it.
Okay.
First of all, I own the firm, right? So I have different agents that I'm really pushing to focus on specific neighborhoods.
Yep.
So like if you're, working in Manhattan, you can serve anywhere throughout Manhattan. Manhattan is actually pretty small, but it's got a ton of product. But you might focus on the Upper West Side, right? Or you might focus on Chelsea. And it happened to be that, my major focus used to be on Chelsea. All those videos that I did were back then in Chelsea. It was just the right spot, and that's where people gravitated towards me, and I was there. So I do try to push my agents to focus. As a brand, as a company, it's a little more complicated, because I would like to say we focus on Chelsea or Upper West Side, but like when you have agents are focusing on different areas. I have agents that focus on Brooklyn, that's their whole business is Brooklyn, and not Brooklyn in general, but like Brooklyn Heights. So as a firm, I've been going through this kind of evolving thing of trying to figure out, okay, so like what is the focus of the firm? Because the firm has to have like a focus that is able to be large enough that fits all these micro brands. Yeah. And so, like, you might be a brand in Chelsea and be, like, dominating that market. Like, so now, like, you're part of this firm. Like, what's the brand of the firm, and how does that work?
So let's parse that out, because we kind of go through the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, the way that we look at it. I own the firm with my wife. I consider myself one of the team. Like, I'm one of the ground troops. We're a little Navy SEAL team. We all have our specialties. Neighborhoods. He's in St. Thomas. He does a lot of London stuff. This is my commercial guy. So if you need any commercial stuff, I'll hook you up with Jamie's beast.
Cool.
Residential, investing, commercial. Do you do all three of those?
We really focus on residential.
Okay, so that
so
was,
at least there's a start.
Yeah.
of an focus.
And residential. So you do kind of leasing, and like people.
We
getting
do. So
into
we
the
do
market.
rentals and sales.
Okay.
We definitely do rentals and sales.
Smart.
I think people see us as a sales firm.
Okay.
I started the firm as a sales firm. And then as I grew and I started hiring agents, I brought in some new agents. And in our marketplace, the easiest way to build a database is by doing rentals. Yeah. It's easy to get clients. You post ads up, they call you, and it's very easy to find. You can post ads that you don't have exclusives on. It's just, that's the way the marketplace works. Yeah. So what we teach agents to do, our like format, our business model here, is if you're a new agent coming in or you're somebody that doesn't have a network, you're going to jump into rentals. You're going to do it for 6 months. Your goal is, of course, to make money, but your goal really more than that is to build a database of contacts. Yeah. And this is where like our focus of our firm, when somebody says, okay, so like, firms do a million different things, like what do you focus on? Some firms focus on new development, some focus firms on whatever. Our focus is on branding agents and helping agents build relationships at scale.
Super smart. 10,000. Like, I know you love marketing, right? Yeah. I know that's part of it. I know that's why you've got some of the toys.
No, we are two similar brains here.
And they laugh because we've been walking around with this gear all around New York, and I'm like, I said to Jamie, I'm like, it's the first time he's had an experience to really spend this much time kind of one-on-one. I'm like, I kind of like to take photos and videos, eh? And he starts laughing, but I'm like, you realize this is all part of it, right? I said bigger picture, like the ROI. It's not $1 in, $2 out. I'm like, it's big picture of telling your story about who you are, so that connection's there, and that we're not selling people anymore. And Ryan said that too. So like the synergy, from the conversation I had with Ryan, and like all three of us could sit at a table and have the same conversation about, we're not salespeople anymore from the standpoint of what it was in the, like say, the 80s and 90s, where it was all psychological, tricking people into a sale, scripting. I told you about the one guy that wanted to come work at our firm. And he's like, all right, he was in a, I'll be delicate about my language, but he was in a field where they would sell supplements based off scripting, cold calling, taking advantage of people, right? And he wanted to work, and he's like, yeah, that's how we're going to do it. And he's like, we'll be this people behind closed doors, and we'll be this person to the public. I'm like, thanks, no thanks, right? Like, you're the same person when the doors are closed and you're not client facing to when you are with clients and you are client facing. So like you're really building a bridge. And I want a great lead way into the next point of the conversation that I was really curious about was your team building skills, because I see how much you put into them when you were doing the training on Snapchat back in the day. I was watching that all the time. You going out, like how do you find talent? How do you find hungry people out there in New York City?
So the reality is that for the last couple of years, I've been focusing on systems. And I've been focusing on branding. What?
Sounds like Justin.
Last 2018 was systems. I'll send you some stuff.
Yeah,
I hooked up with a couple killers in North Carolina, and they helped me with some stuff. So I'll show you some tricks that I learned.
I'm happy to. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So like, and now we literally just started like opening up our doors.
Yeah.
Literally like a month ago.
Yeah.
So
back when you were doing it though, like, because it's a cycle, right?
It's a cycle. Yeah, it's a cycle.
You build it.
Yeah.
But then you're like, oh, okay, now I need to serve these people, so I'm going to shut the door.
Yeah.
Systemize, make sure you're dialed in.
Yeah.
Okay, open the door. So you're back to that stage. What worked then?
Our brokerage started for the first bunch of years as I get the business and the agents serve the business as like a team model. Like, it just happened to be at a brokerage, but I ran a #1 team in the city before that, and I pretty much just took the model and just got the license and then had a brokerage firm. And that's fine, that's great, but honestly, you're better off being better off doing that at another brokerage. Then I was like, okay, so actually, like if I want to have a brokerage, it needs to be about the agents building their own business. So that was a whole shift, right? And that came with pains. And then I went.
Sorry, I'm going to cut you off. So that means not necessarily making just you the face, making them the face.
Actually, I'm like, to some degree, the least important face.
Yeah.
I see my job right now as where we are in our cycle. I have 2 jobs. I'm a talent scout. I go out there and I seek talent. And then #2, I act as an agency. So an agency, people come to an agency like a model or somebody looking for film gigs or whatever it is, and they go and that agency tries to get them the stage, tries to get them opportunities, right? So I try to find someone that I think is going to be out there and is going to go out there and service clients and is going to be able to both find business and serve it. So I find them first, then they're worth my investment, and I invest a lot, so it's worth it. And then when I have that person, I think about how can I get them the stage. So like now we do every single week something called Meier Live Parties. Yeah. So Meier Live Parties.
We were watching those in the Uber the other day. I'm like, right when we hooked up last night, I was like, hey, check this. I'm like, hey, he's doing an outside party here and there. Yeah. That's awesome.
So we do it every single week. If I knew you guys were around, like I would have invited you next one. If you were here Tuesday, when you had you, that would be cool.
Appreciate that.
So, we do that where we take our agents out, we take them to a location, and we have our agents go live at the location talking about the location. We provide them with the information in advance of, hey, we're going to go here. These are 3 really good things to share about this location with your audience. And so it's really easy. They just show up and in 1 hour, they have every single week content on their social platforms. Then we have a videographer that films the whole thing so that we can then create, some, more curated, content. And then we create those kind of videos. Yeah. And we have all that kind of stuff, but all that is like sometimes I'm in the video, but not always. And it's more like if we need a direction or nobody wants to stand up and be the leader of that particular thing, I'll just go and do it. You know, because it's easy for me. So I just go and do it. But really, it's not. The objective is to give agents opportunity to get FaceTime, and so that's kind of where we are, where we're going. Yeah. And
dude, we're brothers. How many times I'm Jamie, you're going in front of the camera. I'm like, Nate, you're doing this one, right? Like, we've done it. You know how to do it, and you're like, okay, now I'm going to show you guys how. I'll back off because I don't want to be necessarily front and center all the time. I do it just by default because we have a smaller team, but it's getting to the point now where I want to put these guys on because I'm like, that's planting those seeds now is going to bring.
Well, you started, right? You were an agent before. I mean, you're like. What,
so I didn't.
How did you get your business?
I didn't want to be an agent to start. Okay. I was in the restaurant industry for over a decade. So a man named Mike Smith was one of my mentors in London. Mm-hmm. I came from Montreal, so I was born and raised in Montreal. Super dynamic, big city. Almost too big for me. I get in too much trouble. I needed to get away for a little bit. Moved to London. Was going to school there. I got an opportunity to work at a restaurant. Met the owner in the parking lot sweeping up cigarette butts, talked to him for 45 minutes, didn't know he was the owner. Somebody inside was like, yeah, he owns everything. And I'm like, I was impressed, right? Because I'm like, man, if he's doing that, I should do even more, right? If he's the owner and he's doing that. And I just planted a seed, so I kind of sidled up next to him. He took me under his wing, taught me the business. I would slug garbage on weekends when everybody else was partying. I was making money. I would work 70-hour weeks, lifting. He was laughing because it was like, lifting kegs and cases of beer, just serving people, right? Like relationships, taking care of the city. Yeah, it's I haven't drank in 5 years now because I probably put too much time in back then, and I could see both sides of it. But I really learned a lot about people because I would see 1,500 people a night going through, right? And London's a kind of a really big small town, 500,000 people. And everybody knows each other twice removed. Like, it's just how it is because it's still a small town, but now it's growing to a big city. But all those relationships I cultivated over those years was a lot of just good faith, taking care of people. They would try to over-tip me because maybe I bought them a drink, and I would give them back their money. And I'd say, no, it's not from me, it's actually Mike's. I said, if I took your money, I'd be stealing. I'm like, we're doing it because you're a good client, you service the place well, we want you to come back. I would escort people out that maybe had too much to drink. And instead of the typical bouncer mentality, I would want to shake their hand and end things on a good note. Or I'd see them in line next week and I'd bring them inside. I'd be like, hey, kicked you out last week. We're friends, right? And they'd be like, kind of grumpy. I'd be like, come on. Like, you don't have to wait in line. And they were clients for life. Yeah. Right? So I learned that customer service experience from Mike because he said, we're different than every other bar and restaurant because we don't necessarily care about the bottom line. He's like, I will lose money to keep my staff employed and treat my customers right. And when he had that mentality, he's probably one of the most well thought of entrepreneurs in London, just because he can't give enough away, and the city just gives it back to him. Yeah. He was basically at the point where I could have gone into the restaurant industry full time. I met my wife, beautiful woman. She pushed me into real estate and was smart about it because she's like, you should get your license. I'm like, oh, I don't want to be a greaseball on a golf course. I said that to Ryan yesterday. I had every perception of the industry. I'm like, I work hard. I'm like, why would I want to do that job? Lo and behold, I somehow end up getting my license because she pushed and pushed and pushed. Got a lot of organic business from those relationships. Oh, you're in the business, do this, do that, take this building. My first listing was a $1.2 million commercial listing. I got roasted by the commercial guys in the city because there's not that many commercial sales in London, and they're like, you have no business getting this. Your cap rate analysis is wrong, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, really? I turn them over to Shannon, who did the analysis, MBA from Ivy. She sends over her spreadsheets and decimated them. We end up blowing the doors off the sale with a creative VTB structure on the deal. First, 6 months in the business. Yeah. We're like, we got the paycheck. We're like, we can do this. We're like, I go to Mike, and I'm like, Mike, you're paying me a good salary. I love my job with you, but Shannon basically not giving me an ultimatum, but she's like, you need to stop working at the restaurant and do this full time because you can't be one in, one out, right? Yeah. I push back because we're a young family. I'm like, man, we have mortgages, and if we have a kid, she's like, you'll flip burgers, you'll be okay. You used to sling garbage, who cares? I'm like, yeah, you're right, actually. So sat down with Mike and Ron. They teared up and they were like, we're so happy for you that you're like our kid going off and doing your own thing. I'm like, you're not worried that you can't manage without me? They're like, whatever. We'll figure it out. We always do. I'm like, that was beautiful because I'm like, they didn't think about themselves. They thought of me when I was leaving. And I've told these guys, I'm like, if he wants to go be a musician or male model in California, I'll support you. If you want to open your own brokerage, I'll support you. It's that mentality. I mean, we've all, I know you've been following Gary Vee since before he was popular, Gary Vee.
I was in Gary Vee's house before he was Gary Vee.
That's really? I didn't know that. Yeah,
Cold called him.
That's funny.
Yeah, Cold called him, and cold called him. I used to be a cold calling animal. That's how I grew my business.
You guys got to talk, yeah.
That's my whole business. Everyone said I should have started in commercial because I was the only residential guy that's just calling the yellow pages all day.
Yeah.
And I called Gary's thing, and I didn't know Gary was it was a long time ago. I probably had the wine library by now, but I didn't know. Whatever.
But he was kind of just grinding.
Just some guy. I called him, and his wife picked up the phone. And I had whatever my pitch was. Someone just sold near you, and for the people looking, and blah blah blah. And she's like, yeah, you can come over. And I came to their apartment. It was just one of random things that went on.
Just appointment.
And I went there, and I just remember that I came in here and she made a very big deal about me putting these booties on my shoes,
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. I mean, I could just take off my shoes. She's like, no, you put the booties on because I have a baby and I don't want stuff. And now back then it was, now I get it. I got 2 kids. I get it completely. She was normal. I wasn't. But so I go to I went in there and she was showing me the place, and I remember the apartment. And I was on the Upper East Side, and then she shows me this balcony, and it's this big balcony, and she's like, and this is where we have wine. And I remember saying that to me, and I'm like, what? It's kind of a weird, some people do it for fun, oh, this is where we have wine, but she sounded really serious. We have parties here sometimes, and wine. Like, not scotch, but wine.
This is what we
I'm
do.
like, okay, that's what we do. I'm like, oh, okay. And that was it. And she's like, I'll talk to my husband and we'll think about it. And then I met her a second time at some coffee place to talk again. And then she's like, yeah, we're not really selling. And that was
Nice
fizzled out,
yeah.
Like, I still have her personal email address and all that kind of stuff. And that was that. And then I was in Inman in San Francisco, I think it was. And I went up to Gary and...
I was in your house.
What?
Did you tell him I was in your house?
Yeah, I was like, Gary, I was like, hey, he's like, hey, what's up? I'm like, listen, you probably don't remember me, but like, I was in your home a bunch of years ago and you had a baby and your wife was there and he's like, you were in my home. I'm like, yeah, I was the real estate agent and I cold called him. He goes, you were the guy that was telling my wife to sell our apartment? She's like, I remember there was some guy that kept telling us we need to sell the place or something like that. And I was like, yeah, that's me. It was a really funny, like, years later.
That's jokes.
Some of that basic stuff earns you so much respect, though.
Yeah.
Because everyone that's successful and in that, at one point,
Did it.
went
Yeah.
to basics. That's what it's all built on.
So our whole our philosophy in terms of like growing business, like what I teach agents is that like we're known for social media stuff, right? We're known for video stuff. We're known for and obviously we do a lot of it. Like I was just in wherever I was somewhere else in California, and I was speaking to like all these people about how to use social media, how to become a mini celebrity, all the kind of stuff that we do content wise, and so on and so forth. But the reality is, if you really want to have like a phenomenal business, either you can create a lot of content and you can wait for the business to come, or you can go out there and build a database. You can strategize where you take your content and you target the database, and then you are taking your cold calling or your networking or your buying leads. I don't care how you get the contacts. There's tons of ways, but you get the contacts and now you are exposing them to you with valuable content all the time. So your business just grows dramatically. So instead of like having to cold call all the time, you may still cold call because it's a great quick way to get business. But like now, instead of like, hopefully I find someone looking to sell, and if I don't find anyone, it's done. It's everyone that I call that gives me an email address is getting into my system, and they'll call me sometime in the next 3 to 5 years because everybody moves here every 3 to 5 years, and like that's kind of how it goes. So I don't think cold call doesn't work. I think it definitely works, and I don't think like direct mailing. Fuck, direct mailing's awesome. It works like crazy. We do a ton of it. I do all those things, but social media now is just like, it's like the steroids, It like pumps
it's
up
leverage,
what you do, like
right?
crazy.
Like,
it's crazy leverage.
It's because you can only be in one place at any one time, and people don't want to necessarily be sold all the time. They want to see you have that hustle muscle and you're actually making the calls and putting in the work, because that'll get deals done. But it's that soft touch. It's the digital bus sign, right? And like the billboards in New York are beautiful, and I actually look at them. I don't think I've ever looked at a billboard in London, but it's the new billboard and digital bus sign, because they're like, oh, there's Jamie doing this, there's Nathan over there. Oh yeah, they sold that property, cool. Oh, that's what's happening in the market. Okay, I need to know that, right? Oh, there's lag time between the data, being posted on the actual news and the sales happening. Oh my gosh, okay. Oh, okay. But they're not actually asking me for anything, so they don't feel that intrusiveness, right? But when it comes time to sell, they message you, and people you don't even know are watching your stuff, never liked, never did a comment. It's like, I love the videos you're doing. We're thinking of making a move, or we're in a really tough spot. Can you help us out? Or sometimes a little piece of advice you give them pro bono comes back around 2 years later, and somebody they know that needs something calls you, right? But it is a delicate line too, and I actually want to say this to my audience because I do so much video and I do so much social. I was talking to a really good friend of mine who's a client, and I was asking him about his perception. And he's like, I love the content and everything else. He's like, you're sharing a lot of extra stuff as far as like business, and so he's like, are you like a life coach? And so I'm like, not at all, actually. I said, I've never remotely thought of myself as that. I'm a sales team leader. My wife runs the brokerage, so I have that kind of separation, which is kind of nice for me. But I said, well, I sell real estate, but I said, we build businesses. So I said, if I find something of value in a book I'm reading, a podcast I watch, or hear, I'll share it. Because it may have an implication to my real estate business, but sometimes I'll share it generally because it'll help a lady starting a coffee shop or somebody that has a clothing store, because it's all synergistic. The other thing we talked about was social presence. He's like, oh, man, how much time do you spend actually selling versus doing social? I said, this is actually very easy. It's all pretty systemized. Like it's all automated. We shoot the footage, it goes out, and I don't really have to touch it. The staff handles it, and the admin. I said, it is something that I talked to these guys about, and I said, be very aware, this is only probably 20% of what we do. I said, sales is still 80, right? All like the marketing and everything else is built into the sales, but I said, as far as social, don't get too caught up in the hype of being a YouTube star or Instagram or this, that, or the other, because it can be almost addictive. And if you want to do that, make that your business. Because what it's going to do, and I've seen it happen to agents in the market, and there's a couple agents that I've seen that are new to the business that are on that YouTube train, and I'm hearing other agents and people that are coming to us that, anyways, may have been their clients saying, we just feel like they have 1 foot in, 1 foot out, they're not really in the business. And I'm like, I'm glad I had that talk with my client, because I don't ever want that to happen to me. So I am running a team that sells real estate in our market. Don't get it twisted. We do a lot of social, we have fun doing it, but it's easy to kind of get lost in that gray area, and when it's fun to do stuff like this, right?
Yeah.
But what's inspiring about sitting down with you and talking about your business and being in New York City is we're like, we are men on fire. We were grabbing those K-pops at Starbucks for your guys, being like,
So nice of you, by the way.
wait till we get back, right? Like, we're gonna blow it up. Like, that fire's there, and it's like, okay, let's be laser focused. This is what we're doing. This is what we're going to get all the balls in play, close the deals for our clients. And Jamie's been working nonstop since we got here, working on deals. He closed one yesterday in St. Thomas, got a bully offer on a property, 4 offers while we're in New York.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to work at 9 o'clock at night in New York than it is to work at 9
yeah.
o'clock at night in London.
It's a different energy
The
level.
lights just turn down in London.
And energy level too, right? Like, I'm born and raised driving in Montreal, and I'm like, people are nuts in Montreal. There's no road signs, nobody speaks the same language. Like, it is what it is. Here, it's kind of that same beautiful music, like constant motion. We were saying that to the Uber driver. We're like, if you stop, you're getting bumped into.
Yeah.
But if you keep moving, you're good. You just stay in that flow. There's that honking horns.
Shout out to that musician last night.
Oh yeah, what's his name?
Jeremy Albino.
Yeah.
Unreal, from Toronto. He had a great band with him. We found him last night at Rockwell Music Hall. Unreal.
Little music venue in, like, near Bowery. He's the music guy. He's a musician and stuff like that, and I'm the real estate guy. So
Country.
I'm like, you find the live music.
Country blues.
He killed it.
Country,
When we walked in this music venue, he starts playing. He's got like the Elvis foot shuffle going on. He's rocking out. Like, I'll send you his link. He's awesome. But he could have been there by himself,
100%.
and he would have been doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And I saw that fire. It's the same thing I see in you. So I'm glad we kind of made the connection, and that kind of came full circle and seeing kind of what you're doing, right?
So one thing, and I thank you guys for coming. I interviewed Grant Cardone a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
And I got to hang out with him and his wife, who happen to actually be really awesome people. It's like the same thing with like Ryan. Like, I know Ryan. I was almost on $1 Million Listing. So like I know these guys, and there's the TV persona, and then there's the person, right? And it's funny. A lot of the people that are big in, I guess it makes sense, that are big in like the self-development, self-help thing. Sometimes they look like they have a huge ego. Sometimes they just have this kind of appearance. And when you get to meet them, you're like, gee, these are really good people, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting down with Grant, and we're talking. But he says something funny. I'm going to be releasing a few of my videos with him. I did one-on-ones, a whole bunch of one-on-ones with him. So, but one of the things I asked him about was about how, how does he keep himself motivated all the time? I'm like, how do you stay 10x all the time? And he was like, Michael, I chase the prize. He's like, I go for the ribbon. And he was talking about, if you follow Grant at all, he's very into Snapchat. He's on social media all the time, right? So he's doing social stuff all the time, but he has a company that sells sales techniques, right? And the sales techniques that he's selling, it's not just like how to do social media. It's like closings and scripts and all this kind of stuff, like the old school stuff. And he says, he goes out there and he does these presentations and he does all these talking, but he's going after, he has an objective. He's going after something, like in my business, right? As an agent, you are going after doing real estate. Like, people hire you to sell a home. You are trying to sell the home. You are trying to get the best price. And if you're looking to sell real estate, you are looking to find clients. You are, it's nice and all to say that, that we're trying to educate people. We are, right? But why, right? Because we're trying to sell a home, trying to help them buy a home, right? And all these other stuff that we do is just kind of the product. It's the beautiful book that that wraps the sale.
Well, there you have it. Michael was dropping absolute gold in this episode. Apologies that it got cut off at the very end. The quality was just so good that it actually broke our camera. If you want to learn more about Michael, hit all the links below. He's an absolute monster. Tell him we sent you. And his business and organization has evolved quite a bit more since we had that original conversation. So So really interesting to see, you know, snapshots in time from people who really built their businesses from a time where all this stuff didn't even really exist to going and trying to offer more and more value to the people around them. So thank you for everything, Michael, and we'll be watching your adventures.